In this video, we will take a deep dive into the Equalizer 3. We will explore the story, break down the plot, and take a closer look at the cast and the characters. We will also examine the film's production detail and box office performance. Finally, we will share a detailed review along with some personal reactions. Let's get started. When we begin talking about the Equalizer 3, we are not just discussing another action school, we are looking at the final chapter of a character study wrapped inside a crime thriller. Directed once again by Antoine Fuqua and starring Denzel Washington, this film quietly reminds us why the modern action genre still has room for maturity, patience, and emotional weight. At first glance, the movie sits comfortably in the action thriller category. But if we slow down and really observe it, we realize that its genre identity is more layered. Yes, there are more confrontations. Yes, there is violence, but this is not a fast cut explosion heavy blockbuster designed purely for adrenaline. Instead, the movie leans into the rhythm of a crime drama. It breathes, it pauses, it lets silence build tension. That deliberate pacing alone make it worth discussing. Antoine Fuqua direction play a major role here. Over the year, Fuqua has developed a style that blends grit with emotional realism. From his early collaboration with Denzel Washington, he understands how to frame a morally complex hero. In this third installment, Fuqua strips away unnecessary noise. The camera lingers longer. The landscape of the southern Italy are not just pretty backdrop, they are emotional contrast. Peaceful streets, warm sunlight, calm sea view, all of it make the violence feel sharper when it arrives. That contrast is the part of what defines the production style. The film uses lighting and composition to emphasize isolation. Robert McCall is often framed alone even when surrounded by people. This visual storytelling reinforces the idea that he is a man between worlds, someone who longs for peace but carries a history that never truly leaves him. The production does not rely heavily on flashy CGI, instead, it uses grounded environment and practical tension. When action happens, it feels close and personal. The editing is tight but not chaotic. You can follow every movement, every decision. Another reason this film deserves attention is its tone. Many action sequels escalate in scale, bigger explosions, bigger villains, louder spectacle. This movie does not opposite. It becomes quieter and more reflective. That creative choice is bold. It suggests confident few and the production team trust the character enough to let the drama drive the momentum. The sound design also deserve appreciation. Silence is used strategically. In salute scenes, the absence of music increased discomfort. When the soundtrack does rise, it supports the mood rather than overpowering it. This careful balance between sound and stillness shows thoughtful craftsmanship. Of course, no discussion of the film's genre would be complete without acknowledging its root. The movie continues the legacy of the Equalizer and the Equalizer 2, but it feels more intimate than either. When the earlier film leaned heavily into urban intensity, this installment explores what happens when a warrior searches for belonging. That shift in atmosphere elevates it beyond standard revenge storytelling. What makes this movie especially worth discussing is how it reflects the evolution of modern action cinema. In an era dominated by superhero spectacle and massive franchises, The Equalizer 3 proved that grounded thrillers still matter. It reminds us that tension does not always require scale, sometimes it requires stillness. So, as we warm up this discussion, think about the genre not just as action but as control, character driven suspense. Think about Fuqua, restrained direction. Think about the production choices that favor mood over noise. These elements together make the film more than just a sequel, they make it a study in how to close a trilogy with focus, maturity, and deliberate style. The film was produced with an estimated budget of approximately $70 million. In the context of modern Hollywood action film, this places it in the mid range category. It is neither a low budget thriller and nor a large scale blockbuster with massive visual effects spending. Many contemporary action franchises operate with budgets exceeding $150 million, especially those relying heavily on CGI, elaborate set pieces, and global marketing expansion. In comparison, this film reflects a controlled and strategically managed investment. A significant portion of the production budget was likely allocated to above the line costs, particularly cast salaries. As the central figure of the trilogy, Denzel Washington compensation would represent one of the largest financial commitment. Established actor with proven box office value often commands substantial fees, and maintaining continuity with a recognizable lead is essential for franchise stability. Director Antoine Fuqua, who helmed all three films in the series, would also represent a meaningful cost within the creative leadership category, retaining the same character sport tonal consistency, but it also reflects a continued financial partnership. Location shooting in Italy likely influenced coast distribution as well. Filming in a European location coastal towns involved travel expenses, housing for cast and crew, transportation of equipment, and permit coordination. However, international production sometimes benefits from regional tax incentives or production rebates, which can partially offset those expenditures. Even with incentive, overseas filming typically increase logistical complexity compared to studio-based production. Unlike effects heavy action films, the film rely more on practical stunt and grounding action choreography than on large scale digital effects. These reduces spending on advanced visual effect team but increase the importance of stunt coordination, safety team, and precision scheduling. The film's intimate action style means resources are concentrated on a carefully staged sequence rather than expensive destruction scenes or CGI heavy battle. Post production cost would include editing, sound design, scoring, and color grading. While these elements are standard across most studio production, their scale depend on the creative direction. Given the film's major pacing and atmospheric tone, spending likely focused on enhancing tension and clarity rather than complex digital enhancement. When compared to early entries in the franchise, the budget appears consistent. The first two films were produced with a smaller financial range, suggesting the studio maintained a stable cost structure rather than dramatically increasing investment for the final installment. This control scaling reflects confidence in the franchised audience without overextending financial risk. In comparison to smaller mid-level action thrill, a $70 million budget aligns closely with other character-driven action properties that prioritize performance and realism over spectacle. It remains significantly lower than superhero film or large ensemble action franchise, but higher than modest independent thrillers. Overall, the production budget of the film represents a calculated balance between star-driven appeal, international production values, and control action filmmaking. It demonstrates financial discipline while still sporting the technical and creative element required to deliver a polished studio action film. The film belongs primarily to the action thriller genre, but it also carries strong element of crime drama and character driven suspense. While many modern action films emphasize spectacle and high speed momentum, this film takes a more restrained and deliberate approach. Its genre identity is rooted not only in physical confrontation but in psychological tension and moral conflict. The tension exists, but it is controlled, purposeful, and often secondary to atmosphere. The overall mood of the film is quite intense and reflective. Unlike loud, explosive blockbuster, this story unfolds with patience from the beginning. There is a sense of stillness that lingers over the setting. The small Italian coastal town where much of the story takes place create an atmosphere of calm beauty. Warm sunlight, narrow street, ocean views, and peaceful daily life establish emotional contrast. That tranquility is essential to the mood because it makes the underlying threat feel more unsettling. Violence disrupts serenity rather than dominating it. Pacing play a critical role in shaping the film's tone. The narrative moves steadily rather than rapidly. Scenes are allowed to breathe. Conservation are not rushed. Silence is frequently used to build suspense. Instead of a constant action sequence, the film relies on slow action building moments. This measured pacing reflects the personality of the central character. Robert McCall is calm, observant, and methodical. The structure of the film mirrors his approach to conflict. He studies situation before acting, and the film invites the audience to do the same. The tone is serious and grounded. There is little humor, and the emotional palette lean toward solemnity. The story deals with themes of justice, protection, and redemption. As a result, the mood is more contemplative than adrenaline driven. Even when action occurs, it feels precise and intimate rather than chaotic. The violence is not exaggerated for spectacle; it is swift and direct. This stylistic choice enhances realism and reinforces the character efficiency. Visually, the film favors natural lighting and careful composed frame. The cinematography emphasizes contrast between peaceful public space and shadow private confrontation. Night scenes are fully dimly lit, heightening suspense and vulnerability. Daytime scenes highlight the warmth of the tone, reinforcing the sense of something worth protecting. The camera often lingers on the protagonist alone, visually reinforcing isolation. This stylistic consistency supports the film's reflective tone. Sound design further strengthens the mood. Silence is used strategically to create discomfort. Background music does not overwhelm scene but subtly support emotional shift. In moment of confrontation, sound becomes sharper and more immediate, intensify realism. The absence of exaggerated sound effect keep the experience grounded. This control audio approach complement the film restrained visual style. Another defining stylistic element is its focus on intimacy rather than scale. The stakes feel personal instead of global. There are no world ending threat or massive conspiracies. The danger is localized and human. This smaller scale strengthen emotional investment, but because the conflict feel tangible and immediate, the film's mood remain consistent with this grounded approach. Overall, the theme of this film can be described as a mature action thriller infused with crime drama sensibilities. Its mood is calm yet intense, peaceful yet ominous. Through deliberate pacing, restrained action, atmospheric setting, and controlled stylistic choices, the film creates an experience that value tension over spectacle and reflection over chaos. It stands as an example of how action cinema can remain intense while embracing subtlety and emotional depth. Before watching this film, audience expectations were shaped by several important factors: the legacy of the previous film, the presence of a major star, and the established tone of the franchise. Viewers did not enter the theater without context. They came with assumption based on genre familiarity, character continuity, and the reputation of the creative team. From a viewer's demographic perspective, the film primarily targets adult audience. The franchise has always appealed more strongly to mature viewers rather than teenagers. The theme of justice, moral responsibility, and control violence resonate particularly with audience age 30 and above. Many viewers in this demographic appreciate character driven action rather than fast cut spectacle. Additionally, Denzel Washington's long-standing career attract an older audience that value performance and presence over flashy effect. However, the movie also draws younger action fans who are interested in grounding thriller that focus on skill, strategy, and intensity. Main audience traditionally from a large portion of the action thriller demographic, and expectation likely included physical confrontation, tactical planning, and decisive hero moment. At the same time, the franchise emotional undertone broadened its appeal beyond purely action-driven viewer. The storyline offer explore loneliness, redemption, and protection of the vulnerable theme that attract viewers looking for more than simple revenge narrative. Anticipated theme play a significant role in shaping expectation. Fan of the thriller earlier film expected the continuation of the robot McCall moral code. We were anticipated a storyline centered on justice delivered outside conventional legal system. The franchise has consistently portrayed its protagonist as a calm and calculated figure who intervene when institutions fail. As a result, audience likely expected another narrative including the defense of innocent people against organized criminal forces. There was also expectation surrounding clear since this installment was promoted a final chapter of the trilogy. Viewers expected emotional resolution rather than simply escalated action sequence. Many likely hope for character development and a meaningful conclusion. This expectation influenced how audience approach the pacing and tone. Instead of looking for bigger explosion or higher body count, many viewers anticipated a more reflective story. Genre fan of action thriller came with specific expectation about structure and style. They expected action building sequence, carefully choreographed confrontation, and a steady rhythm leading to climatic showdown. However, the fan of this particular franchise also expected restraint. The previous film established a pattern of controlled pacing and precise violence rather than chaotic spectacle. Therefore, returning viewers likely anticipated calculated scene where the protagonist methodically assesses and neutralizes threat. Another expectations involve setting in and atmosphere because the film was set in a European coastal town rather than a large American city. Audience may have anticipated a shift in visual style. This creative curiosity about how the new environment would influence tone. Fan expected the contrast between peaceful surroundings and criminal intrigue to play a central role in the narrative tension. Additionally, audience familiar with the Antoine Fuqua directing the style expected a grounded visual approach. His reputation for gritty realism shaped assumption about how action could be presented. Rather than stylized fantasy compact, viewers anticipated realism, intensity, and emotional weight. Marketing also influenced expectation. Trailers emphasize both violence and tranquility, signaling that the film would balance action with atmosphere. This suggested a slower burn rather than the constant chaos. As a result, audience likely enter with measured expectation, anticipating intensity but also patience. Overall expectations for this film were rooted in familiarity and trust. Viewers' demographics suggest an adult audience seeking intelligent action. Anticipated theme center on justice, redemption, and protection. Genre of an expected precision, tension, and emotional resolution rather than exaggerated spectacle. These layered expectations shape how the film was received and how audience interpreted its pacing and tone. The film is clearly designed for a specific segment of the movie-going audience. While it exists within the broad action genre, its tone, pacing, and thematic focus reveal that it is not aimed at everyone equally. The film's structure, subject matter, and stylistic choice indicate that it is crafted primarily for mature viewers who appreciate grounded storytelling rather than spectacle-driven entertainment. In terms of age group, the core audience is adult, particularly those aged 30 and above. The film carries a serious tone and includes intense violence, making it unstable for younger viewers. Beyond content restriction, however, its emotional and thematic depth naturally appeal to an older demographic. The story centers on justice, moral responsibility, loneliness, and redemption concepts that resonate most strongly with viewers who experience complex life realities. Unlike teenage oriented action film filled with humor and fast-paced editing, this movie unfolds patiently and demand action. Its slower pacing aligns better with audience who prefer reflection alongside action. That said, the film can also attract viewers in their mid-twenties who enjoy serious crime thriller. Younger adult audience who favor realism over fantasy may find the film engaging. However, it is unlikely to strong appeal to children or teenagers seeking light entertainment, comedic element, or superhero style escapism. The mood is sober and restrained rather than playful. Looking at interest, the film is tailored for viewers who appreciate character driven action. Fan of methodical protagonist, strategy, confrontation, and morally complex heroes are the primary target. The central character operates with calm precision. Much of the tension comes from anticipation rather than chaos. Viewers who enjoy analyzing character decision and motivation will likely connect with the film more deeply than those simply seeking non-stop excitement. The movie also appealed to audience interested in crime drama, organized crime, local corruption, and vigilante justice from the backbone of the narrative. Viewers who enjoy stories about one individual standing against systemic wrongdoing will find the film satisfying. The theme of protection and moral accountability may resonate particularly with those who value narratives centered on personal ethic and quiet heroism. Genre preferences play a major role in defining the target audience. The film is most suitable for fans of grounded action thriller rather than fantasy science fiction blockbuster. It does not rely on advanced technology, superheroes' ability, large scale destruction. Instead, it emphasizes realism and physical confrontation. Viewers who prefer practical stunt, intimate fight sequence, and tension-filled encounter will likely appreciate its style. Additionally, fans of slow burn thriller will feel at home. The pacing allows scenes to develop gradually, building suspense through atmosphere rather than constant motion. Audience who enjoy film where silence and stillness create unease with connect more strongly than those who expect rapid editing and explosive spectacle every few minutes. Another important segment of the target audience include admirer of Denzel Washington performance. His established reputation draws viewers who trust his ability to deliver emotional gravity and control intensity. For many, appeal lies as much in his presence as in the action itself. Long-time follower of his career may see the film as a continuation of a mature performance-focused approach to the genre. The film is made for adult people who prefer intelligent, grounded action. It is ideal for those who engage age 30 and above, who through mature younger adults may also appreciate it. The film target audience interested in crime drama, moral drama, dilemmas, and strategic confrontation rather than large-scale spectrum. Fan of realistic thriller and character-driven storytelling from the core demographic. It is best suited for viewers seeking highlighted entertainment, fantasy element, or high-energy superhero style action. The movie tone, pacing, and thematic focus clearly signal that it is crafted for a mature audience that allow atmosphere, discipline, and emotional depth within the action genre. The film promises an emotional experience that is restrained, intense, and quietly reflective rather than explosive or sensation. From the beginning, the film establishes a mood that is calm on the surface but carry a steady undercurrent of action. This balance between serenity and danger shape the movie shape the viewer's emotional journey instead of overwhelming the audience with constant chaos. The movie draws them into a controlled atmosphere where every pause, glance, and moment of silence carries weight. The overall mood is contemplative and sober. There is a sense of stillness that runs though much of the film, especially in scenes each with a peaceful Italian tone. This tranquility creates emotional contrast. Viewers are invited to feel comfort in the beauty and the warmth of the setting, but that comfort is fragile. Beneath the calm lie the threat of violence and corruption. This contrast generates a steady emotional unease. The tension is not loud but is persistent. The audience is aware that conflict is inevitable even when the environment feels safe. The theme deepens this emotional experience. Justice is central, but it is presented in a morally complex way. The protagonist does not represent institutional lie, instead, he embodies personal accountability. This creates emotional ambiguity. Viewers may feel satisfaction when wrongdoers to face consequence, yet they are also aware of the cost of such justice. The film encourages reflection rather than simple celebration of action. It invites the audience to consider what it means to protect others and what sacrifices accompany that choice. Redemption is another key theme shaping the emotional promise of the film. The central characters seek peace, suggesting a longing for closure and belonging. This desire introduces vulnerability. The audience sees that beneath the calm exterior lie a history of pain and isolation. That emotional laboring making the experience more than a series of confrontation. It becomes a story about whether someone with a violent past can truly find rest. Viewers who connect with themes of second chance and personal transformation may find the emotional journey particularly resonant. The intended impact is not adrenaline alone but emotional satisfaction. While the film includes moments of intense action, those scenes are brief and precise. The emotional payoff comes from resolution rather than spectacle. When tension builds slowly, its release feels on. This control structure creates a sense of catharsis. Audience may leave feeling that justice was delivered in a meaningful way rather than in an exaggerated display. There is also an undercurrent of loneliness through the narrative. The protagonist often appear isolated even when surrounded by others. This visual and emotional solidarity encourages empathy. Viewers are invited to feel the weight of a film's life shaped by violence and responsibility. The emotional tone is therefore mature and introspective. It does not aim to excite through humor or surprise twists, but to engage through steady moral clarity. The film also promises a sense of protection and reassurance. Despite its sober mood, there is comfort in the presence of a capable figure standing against wrongdoing. This reassurance provide emotional balance. Even in tense moments, the audience trusts that order will eventually be restored. That trust shape the experience, creating anticipation rather than fear. Overall, the film offers an emotional experience grounded in quiet intensity. Its mood is reflected in serious. Its theme revolve around justice and redemption, and its intended impact is thoughtful satisfaction rather than overwhelming spectacle. It asks viewer to feel tension gradually, to appreciate calm before conflict, and to reflect on the cost of doing what is right. Grounded in quiet intensity, its mood is reflective and serious. Its theme revolves around justice and redemption, and its intended impact is thoughtful satisfaction rather than overwhelming spectacle. It asks viewer to feel tension gradually, to appreciate calm before conflict, and to reflect on the cost of doing what is right. The result is an experience that feels mature, controlled, and emotionally steady, leaving audience with a sense of closure rather than shock. At its core, the film is built around the idea of balance, moral balance, emotional balance, and the balance between violence and peace. The story operates with the framework of an action thriller, yet its deeper concept is less about confrontation and more about restoration. It explores what happens when a person who has lived a safe shape by force being too long for stillness. The central idea is not simply the defeat of evil, but the reach for equilibrium in a world where injustice repeatedly disrupts harmony. One of the primary theme is justice beyond institution. The narrative presents a world in which formal systems are insufficient to protect the vulnerable. Instead of relying on code or authority, the story introduces a figure who acts independently, guided by an intended moral compass. This raises question about responsibility. When structures fail, who is accountable for restoring order? The film does not present easy answer, but it suggests that moral action sometimes require personal sacrifice. Justice here is not abstract or theoretical; it is immediate and embodied in individual choice. Another core theme is redemption. The protagonist is not motivated by ambition or glory. Rather, he appeared driven by a desire for career. The story concept revolve around whether someone shaped by violence can step outside it. Peace is presented as something fragile and hard earned. The character journey is not out toward power but toward belonging. The subtitle shift in focus transforms the narrative from a typical revenge arc into something more reflective. The idea of redemption is not loud or dramatic, it is quiet and persistence woven into small gestures and moments of connection. Community also plays a central conceptual role. The setting emphasizes ordinary people living simple lives, creating a contrast between everyday warmth and hidden corruption. The core idea suggests that peace is collective rather than individual. When a community is threatened, the disturbance affect everyone. The protagonist involvement is not about dominance, it is about protection. The story positions him as a guardian rather than a conqueror. This framing reshapes the meaning of violence. It becomes reactive rather than aggressive, a tool used reluctantly rather than celebrative. The message embedded within the story touches on moral clarity. When the world of the film contains danger and cruelty, it is not morally ambiguous in its depiction of harm. Wrongdoing is visible and tangible. Yet the method of confronting it introduces complexity. Protagonist embodies a paradox. He seeks tranquility but carries the capacity for decisive force. This tension reflects a broader human conflict, the desire to live peacefully in a world that does not always permit it. The story abstract idea is that some strength and sincerity can coexist, so maintaining that balance demands discipline. Isolation is another conceptual layer. The central character moves through the narrative as someone who stands apart. Even when he forms connection, there is an emotional distance. This solitude underscores the cost of his role. The film story concept implies that those who shoulder the burden of protecting others often remain separate from them. It invites reflection on sacrifice not as a grand gesture but as a quiet condition of responsibility. The film also examines the idea of home. Beyond physical geography, home represents safety and acceptance. The narrative asks whether someone who has spent years in conflict can truly settle into stillness. The search for home becomes symbolic of the search for inner peace. This theme elevates the story beyond action mechanic. It becomes about identity and the longing to belong somewhere without fear. In abstract terms, the movie core ideas center on restoration. Chaos disrupts harmony and a disciplined force work to restore it. Yet the restoration is not portrayed as dream, it is portrayed as necessity. The story suggests that justice, when pursued ethically, is not about dominance but about safeguarding balance. Violence is not glorified but contextualized as a reluctant instrument. Ultimately, the film story concept revolve around the tension between who a person has been and who they wish to become. It explores where redemption is possible in a world where wrongdoing persists. Through themes of justice, redemption, community, and belonging, the movie presents a message about moral responsibility and the pursuit of peace. Its core idea is that the balance must sometimes be defended and that truth Strength lies not in aggression but in the disciplined protection of what is fragile and good. The central conflict of this film is not simply a battle between a hero and antagonistic force. At a deeper level, it is a conflict between peace and intrusion, between restraint and action, and between personal redemption and unavoidable responsibility. The story revolves around a figure who desires stillness yet repeatedly finds himself confronting disorder. This internal external tension forms the foundation of the narrative. One layer of the conflict lies within a moral dilemma. The protagonist believes in justice, but he operates outside formal system of law. This creates an ethical tension that defines the film's core struggle. Is it right to take decisive action when institutions fail? Can personal judgment replace structural authority? The narrative does not simplify this question. Instead, it frames justice as something that carries weight. Acting against wrongdoing may restore balance, but it also reinforces a life shaped by violence. The character must constantly weigh his desire for peace against his sense of moral. The dimension of the conflict is the challenge of identity. The protagonist is someone shaped by a history of confrontation, yet he is placed in an environment that represents calm and belonging. This contrast intensify the emotional struggle. Can someone with a past defined by force truly detach from it, or does circumstances inevitably draw them back into familiar pattern? The tension between who he has been and who he hopes to become drive much of the narrative emotional depth. The central conflict is grounded in the presence of oppressive force that threatens stability. However, the film avoids forming this as a grander global struggle. Instead, it presents a localized imbalance. The tension arises from the vulnerability of ordinary life when confronted by corruption. The protagonist stands at the intersection of this imbalance. He is neither fully the part of the threatened community nor entirely separate from it. This is in between position heighted the conflict. He must decide whether to remain detached or intervene. The challenge extends beyond physical confrontation. It involves emotional restraint. The protagonist is characterized by discipline and control. His strength lies not only in capability but in patience. The central conflict as that patience. The story explores whether maintaining calm in the face of provocation is sustainable. The tension built through anticipation rather than immediate action. Silence becomes as significant as confrontation, reflecting the ongoing struggle to contain impulses while recognizing responsibility. There is also a broader philosophical tension embedded in the narrative. The film raises question about the cost of justice. Protecting others may require sacrifice, isolation, or the reinforcement of a violent identity. The protagonist's moral code compels him to act, but every action risks anchoring him to as a past he hoped to transcend. This paradox defines the heart of the conflict. To preserve peace for others, he may have to disrupt his own. Another layer of the tension emerges from trust. The protagonist exists in a space where connection is possible but fragile. Trusting others requires vulnerability, and vulnerability can expose weakness. The narrative subtly explores whether someone who has lived cautiously can allow closeness without compromising their vigilance. This internal hesitation mirrors the larger theme of groundedness versus openness. The central conflict also reflects a timeless narrative structure, order versus chaos, yet in this story, chaos is not abstract. It manifests as disruption of community and harmony. The protagonist embodies order not as rigid control but as protective balance. The tension arises when that balance is threatened. His response becomes inevitable, yet not without consequence. Ultimately, the central conflict is defined by duality. It is the tension between withdrawal and engagement, peace and comfort, solitude and connection. It asks whether a person can escape the shadow of their on responsibility. This struggle is not merely about defeating opposition, it is about navigating the moral terrain that accompanies action. The film's sustained tension comes from this layered conflict, where every choice carries both relief and core. In abstract terms, the story presents a meditation on responsibility. When injustice appears, indifference becomes a choice. The protagonist's refusal to remain indifferent fuels the conflict, yet his intervention deepens the internal struggle he hopes to quiet. This ongoing push and pull between desire for rest and obligation to act form the enduring tension that drive the narrative forward. The film explores a range of mature, layered themes that extend beyond the surface action level. While the film presents itself as a crime thriller, its deeper structuring engages with ethical question, emotional transformation, and subtitle cultural commentary. These themes shape the narrative meaning and give way to its conflict. One of the central themes is justice outside institutional system. The story raises ethical questions about what happens when official structure fail to protect vulnerable people. If legal mechanisms are slow, corrupt, or powerless, does an individual have the moral authority to intervene? This question lies at the heart of the film ethical tension. The protagonist act according to a personal moral code rather than established law. The narrative does not entirely glorify or condemn this choice. Instead, it presents it as complex. Justice becomes less about legality and more about responsibility. The film encourages viewers to consider whether morality is defined by rules or by outcome. Closely tied to this is the theme of moral responsibility. The protagonist does not seek recognition or reward. His actions are driven by an internal obligation. This introduces a deeper ethical injury. When witnessing harm is neutrality acceptable. The story suggests that inaction can also be a moral stance. By choosing to act, the central character accepts consequence, reinforcing the idea that ethical living often demands sacrifice. The tension becomes personal peace and social duty becomes a defining thematic thread. Another significant theme is redemption. The protagonist's emotional arc revolves around the possibility of change. Having lived a life shaped by violence, he appeared to long for calm and belonging. This introduces a powerful emotional question: can someone with a turbulent past redefine themselves? Redemption here is not portrayed as dramatic transformation but a gradual emotional healing. The story explores whether peace is earned through withdrawal or through continued responsibility. The character journey suggests that redemption is not escape from one path but integration of it. Loneliness and isolation can also shape the emotional landscape. The protagonist exists in a space between involvement and distance. Even when surrounded by others, there is a sense of separation. This emotional isolation highlights the cost of carrying a protective role. The film explores the burden of being the one who steps forward. Emotional arc in the story often revolve around connection, whether it is possible to form meaningful bond while maintaining vigilance. The tension between solitude and belonging deepen the narrative emotional impact. Cultural topics subtly emerge through the setting and the community dynamic. By situating the story within a small, close night environment, the film contrasts communal life with external disruption. The portrayal of local traditions, shared spaces, and daily routine underscore the value of cultural identity. When that identity is threatened by criminal influence, the story frames the conflict not merely as personal but communal. Protection becomes a defense of culture and shared stability, not just individual. Another cultural theme involves power and exploitation. The narrative examines how fear can be used to control communities. It touches on the imbalance between those who dominate and those who endure. Without focusing on specific events, the story highlights how corruption often infiltrates everyday life. This reinforces the modern idea that injustice is not always dramatic, it can be quiet and persistent. The film suggests that confronting such exploitation requires courage and moral clarity. The theme of balance runs throughout the movie. There is a constant interplay between peace and violence, calm and confrontation. The protagonist embodies this balance. His strength lies not only in action but in restraint. The story suggests that true power is measured by control. This philosophical undertone elevates the narrative beyond physical conflict. It becomes a meditation on equilibrium, how to protect what is good without losing oneself in aggression. Finally, the film explores the idea of belonging. Home is portrayed not simply as a place but as emotional acceptance. The protagonist's journey hints at a longing to be a part of something stable and warm. Yet this role as protector keeps him slightly apart. This tension from one of the story's most subtitle emotional arcs. It raises the question of whether someone defined by defense can ever fully participate in ordinary life. This film examines justice, responsibility, redemption, isolation, cultural preservation, and balance through ethical question and emotional development. It presents a mature reflection on what it means to act morally in an imperfect world. Its themes are not loud or exaggerated but quite persistent, shaping a narrative, but it is as reflective as it is intense. This film creates emotional connection not through spectacle but through mood, thematic depth, and a careful control viewer experience. Rather than overwhelming audience with constant intensity, the film builds attachment through quiet tension and emotional restraint. Its atmosphere invites reflection, allowing viewers to connect not only with the protagonist's action but with his internal state. The mood plays a central role in this connection. From the belonging, there is a calm, almost meditative tone that contrasts with the underlying threat of disruption. The peaceful setting creates a sense of safety and warmth which naturally draw viewers in when tension slowly being to surface. The audience feel it more deeply because they have already invested emotionally in that tranquility. The contrast between sincerity and danger heighten emotional involvement. Viewers are not simply watching conflict, they are feeling the loss of peace alongside the character. Silence is one of the film's most powerful emotional. Many scenes unfold with minimal dialogue or background music along subtitle expression and pauses to carry meaning. This restraint encourages viewer to lean in to observe carefully instead of being told how to feel through dramatic scoring or exaggerated action. The audience experience emotion through atmosphere. The quiet intensity foster empathy because it mirrors real life emotional processing, calm on the surface, complex beneath. The themes of justice and protection further strengthen emotional engagement. The story presents a world where vulnerability exists within ordinary life. Viewers can relate to the desire for safety and stability. When that stability is threatened, the emotional stake feel personal. The protagonist's role as protector taps into a universal longing for reassurance. Audience also connect with the character who stand up for others, especially when those others appear defenseless. This dynamic create a protective intent within viewers themselves, deepening their investment. Redemption is another theme that enhance emotional resonance. The central character is not portrayed as flawless or invincible in a purely heroic sense. He carries emotional weight and a history that shape his present. This complexity make him relatable. Many viewers understand the idea of wanting a quieter life after hardship. That suggestion that someone can evolve, seek peace, and attempt to move beyond their past create a strong emotional bridge. The audience is not only observing his journey but quietly hoping for his sense of closure. The viewer experience is also shaped by pacing. The film does not rush emotional beat. This allows time for a moment of stillness, reflection, and subtitle interaction. This deliberate rhythm gives viewers space to observe what is happening. Emotional connection often requires time, and the movie understand this by avoiding constant escalation. It permits a gradual build up of tension and empathy. When confrontation occurs, it feels earned rather than forced. Another important aspect of emotional connection lies in isolation. The protagonists frequently appear alone even within a community. This solitude invites viewers to sense his internal distance. Many people relate to feeling separate from others despite being physically present. The film captured that emotional gnosis without over explaining it. The audience connect through recognition rather than explicit exposition. The cultural and communal setting also enhance emotional depth. The portrayal of everyday lives, shared spaces and tradition and simple interaction create formability. In viewers may see reflection of their own community in these moments when those shared experiences are threatened. The emotional reaction is intensive. The story focuses on preserving ordinary life resonate because ordinary life is what some most people value most deeply. Finally, the film emotional connection comes from its control intensity. Instead of sensationalizing violence, it treats conflict with seriousness. This restraint makes emotional response feel genuine. Viewers are not encouraged to celebrate aggression but to understand its necessity within the story's moral framework. That majority foster thoughtful engagement rather than surface excitement. This film connects emotionally by balancing calm with tension. It assesses vulnerability with strength and solitude with community. Through its more reflective theme and deliberate pacing, it offers viewer an experience that feels grounded and human. The emotional impact comes not from spectacle but from quiet identification with the character seeking space in a world that repeatedly tested. The film dramatic weight of the story rests from its firmly on its character, with main character Robert McCall standing at the center of every moral and emotional moment from a viewer's perspective. This is a character driven thriller in its truest sense. The plot exists largely to test, reveal, and refine the personalities involved rather than to overwhelm the audience with spectacle. What makes the film compelling is not constant action but the true gravity of it. The central figure, Robert McCall, embodies the classic reluctant guardian among traditional archetypes. He is not a hero seeking recognition, not a rebel chasing chaos. Instead, he filled the mold of the disciplined protector, a solitary figure who steps forward only when necessary. This archetype is familiar in action cinema, yet here is treated with unusual restraint. M. Call does not posture or dominate scenes with dramatic declaration. His authority emerges through silence and stillness. The film trusts the audience to feel his presence rather than be told about it. Examining M. Call, the composure is his defining quality. He moves with patience and speaks with intention. Every gesture familiar, unlike impulsive action, protagonists may rarely act without calculation. This discipline creates tension because viewers sense that his calm exterior conceals formidable capability. Another key trait is moral clarity. MCAL operates according to a personal code that appears unwavering. He does not hesitate once he determines what is right. That decisiveness provides the narrative with its ethical backbone. Yet beneath this control lies emotional fatigue. McCall carries the quiet weight of a man who has been seen too much. The film's subtitle reveal his longing for peace and belonging. His isolation is not glamorous, it feels and slightly tragic. As a viewer, one might argue that this vulnerability elevates him beyond archetype. He is not simply an Avengers but a man seeking stillness in a world that refuses to stay quiet. Amima Collins, another key figure among the main characters, serves as an institutional counterpart. She fits the lawful investigator archetype. Her role represents structural authority and social responsibility, where Amkal operates immediately. Ima embodies precision and accountability. Her personality trait include intelligence, professionalism, and question determination. He approaches conflict through inquiry and coordination rather than personal intervention. The dynamic between her and McCall highlight the film central tension between personal justice and institutional system. Ima presence also had emotional balance. While McCall's worldview is shaped by solitude, she represents connection to a border Network hard perspective introduce question rather than immediate answer. From a reviewer standpoint, she grounds the narrative in contemporary reality. She is not merely a sportive character but a structural contrast that shapes the MCAL independence. Vincent and Morocco Quaranta function as primarily antagonistic forces. With an archetype, they align with the oppressive power or entitled ruler figure. Their dominance relies on intimidation and control rather than interception. Their personality traits include arrogance, impulsiveness, and reliance on fear as a tool. They are less emotionally complex than Temcol, but their simplicity is deliberate. They represent imbalance and corruption, standing in thematic opposition to MCall discipline. Sporting community figures such as Gio Bonici and Amina reflect warmth and vulnerability. These characters embody the symbol of home archetype. Their sincerity, orderness humanize the environment. They are not defined by grand gesture but by everyday kindness. A personality trait include openness, loyalty, and quiet resilience. Through them, the film embodies what is worth protecting. They give emotional context to MCall choices. From a reviewer's perspective, the character concentration in this film succeed because of contrast and restraint. MCall's stoic protector archetype is balanced by Imamma institutional presence and Quaranta brothers' chaotic dominance. Each personality type reinforces the thematic framework of justice and balance. Ultimately, the main characters are defined less by transformation and more by revenge. And MCall does not become someone new. Instead, the film reveals deeper layer of who he already is through careful drawn archetype and disciplined personality trait. The story deliver a mature character focused thriller anchored by emotional control and moral conviction. The emotional strength of this film rests heavily on its acting performance. While the film is structured as a crime thriller, its impact depends on how convincingly the actors communicate restraint, tension, and vulnerability rather than relying on exaggerated action or dramatic monologue. The performances are measured and internal. The subtitle approach allows the emotional undercurrent to feel authentic rather than staged. Among the lead actor, Denzel Washington anchored the film with remarkable control. His portrayal of Robert M. Call is defined by quiet intensity. Much of his performance relies on stillness, slight shift in expression, prolonged eye contact, and carefully paced dialogue. He rarely raises his voice, yet the emotional weight behind his silence is unmistakable. This restraint makes his moment of action more powerful because they emerge from calm rather than chaos. Emotionally, Washington convey awareness and resolve at the same time. Viewers can sense that the character longs for peace even when he is forced into confrontation. That duality creates empathy. The audience does not simply watch him act, they feel the burden he carries. What stands out most in Washington's performance is emotional discipline. He avoids melodrama. Instead, he allowed the character's inner conflict to surface gradually. His facial expression often communicate more than extended dialogue could. This understood approach aligned perfectly with the film's reflective tone. As a result, the emotional connection feels mature and earned. The cast play a very vital role in reinforcing this emotional foundation. Dakota Fanning portray Emma's Colin deliver a composed and intelligent performance. Her presence bring balance to the narrative while Washington character operate from quiet certainty. Fanning introduced curiosity and caution, determination emotionally. She provides a sense of grounded realism. Her reaction feel natural rather than exaggerated, and she brings credibility to the institutional perspective within the story. This dramatic dynamic between her and Washington is subtle but meaningful. There is the mutual respect conveyed through mere interaction rather than overt sentimentality. The actor portraying Vincent and Marco Curenta contribute a different emotional energy. Their performance lean toward control, aggression. They embodies intimidation without descending into caricature. The emotional tone they bring contrasts sharply with Washington's calm presence. This difference heightened tension instead of chaotic shooting. Their menace often feel calculated, which keep the atmosphere grounded. The performances are less layered emotionally but serve an important purpose. They represent disruption and imbalance. Community characters such as Gao, Bonisa, and Amina add warmth and humanity. Their performance through quieter are essential to the film's emotional resonance. They create a sense of normalcy and vulnerability. This sincerity make the stake feel personal through small gesture and simple conservation. They establish the environment that the protagonists seek to protect. That authenticity in their portrait strengthen the audience's emotional investment. Chemistry among the cast is subtle but effective. The film does not rely on overt emotional exchanges or dramatic bonding scenes. Instead, the chemistry is conveyed through glances, pauses, and sheer understanding. The connection between Washington and Fanning feel professional and restrained, fitting the tone of the narrative. Meanwhile, Washington's interaction with the community character carry a gentle warmth, suggesting quiet attachment without explicit declaration. Overall, the acting performance elevate the film beyond standard genre expectation. The lead actor deliver depth through restraint. The supporting cast reinforce the emotional texture with imbalance and contrast. The chemistry feel natural and understated, consistent with the film's measured pacing. Emotionally, the performance create a grounded experience that lingers. Rather than overwhelming viewers with spectacle, the cast invite them into a controlled and thoughtful emotional journey shaped by discipline, subtlety, and quiet intensity. In the film, realism and character depth are not built through complicated plotting, but through stillness, restraint, and emotional history. The film's power lies in how it allows the characters, especially Robert McCall, to feel grounded in recognizable emotional reality rather than existing purely as action archetype. Even with a heightened thriller framework, the story strives to make its people feel human first and cinematic second. Robert McCall is portrayed as a man carrying invisible weight. His development does not rely on dramatic speeches or exaggerated transfer, but on subtitle shift in behavior and perspective. At this stage in his life, he is not a hero searching for purpose. He is a man feels less like a mission and more like an internal negotiation between violence and stillness. The realisms come from the exhaustion in his demeanor, the quiet pauses before the scene, and the sense that every action cost him something emotionally. His past is never loudly displayed, yet it shapes every choice he makes. This layer restraint gives the character depth beyond the typical action protagonist. Believability in the film is strengthened by its setting. The small Italian town does not feel like a mirror backdrop. It feels lived in. The rhythm of daily life, the cafes, the conservation, the celebration create an authentic social environment. This realism anchors the story more intense element. When conflict emerges, it disrupts something tangible and recognizable, not just an abstract idea of peace. The townspeople are not exaggerated, caricatured, they are presented with warmth and simplicity. Their presence give McCall something real to protect, which deepen the emotional stake. Character development unfolds slowly rather than dramatic transformation. We witness gradual openness. McCall granted nature softened as he became part of the community. His growth is measured in small gestures, shared meal, casual conversation, moments of silent observation. These interactions show emotional evaluation without over exposition. It feels believable because it mirrors real human change. Subtitle incremental, often unspoken. The antagonistic force in the film also carry a sense of grounded meanness instead of cartoonish villainy. The threat feels systemic and practical. The antagonists represent control and corruption that seep into everyday life. This realism heightened tension because it reflects a recognizable form of power imbalance. The conflict is not purely physical, it is social and psychological. That layer threat gives the story depth beyond simple good versus evil confrontation. Emotional range plays a crucial role in making the film feel authentic. McCall is not defined slowly by socialism. Beneath his calm exterior lies grief, loneliness, and a desire for belonging. These emotions surface quietly rather than explosively. The film trusts the audience to notice the micro expression, the body language, and the silence between words. This restraint enhance realism. Real people often hide their deepest feeling, and McCall emotional control feel like a survival mechanism rather than a stylistic choice. Supporting character contribute to his depth by reflecting different facets of normal life. Innocence, resilience, vulnerability. Their emotional response feel natural rather than exaggerated. Fear is expressed subtly. Gratitude is understated. Even moment of joy carry softness instead of melodrama. This tonal consistency reinforces believability. The film emotional manipulation by allowing scenes to beneath breathe instead of forcing dramatic crescendos. Another aspect of realism lies in consequence. Violence is not glamorized, it carries weight. Physical confrontation feels deliberate and controlled, not chaotic spectacle. This grounded choreography aligned with McCall's calculated personality. His action feel methodical rather than impulsive, reinforces the idea that he is experienced and disciplined. The realism here is psychological, every moment reflects intention. Depth also comes from moral ambiguity. McCall operates outside conventional law, yet his motivations stem from a deeply personal moral code. The film does not fully justify or condemn his choices, instead, it represents them as the action of a man who believes he is restoring balance in a flaw where this ethical gray area add complexity. Viewers are invited to reflect on justice, retribution, responsibility without being even easy on. The pacing, sport, character depth, quiet moments are given as much importance as confrontation. This structural choice emphasize internal development over spectacle. It allows viewer to sit with the character's solitude and consider his emotional state. That patience contributes significantly to the film's realism. Ultimately, realism and depth in this film come from emotional disdain, environmental authenticity, and character driven storytelling. The film understands that believability is not about mimicking everyday life perfectly but about capturing emotional truth. Robert McCall feels real not because his skills are ordinary but because his longing for peace, connection, and redemption resonate on a human level. The world around him feels texture and inhabited, making his struggle more intimate and impactful. By grounding his character in subtitle development, believability, relationship, and authentic emotional range, the film transcends typical action convention. It becomes less about spectacle and more about the quiet complexity of a man trying to reconcile who he has been with who he hopes to become. The film was produced with a budget that reportedly fell with a range of approximately 70 to 75 million dollars, placing it comfortably within the mid to upper tier of modern studio action thriller. This figure reflects a balance between controlled spending and high production values, particularly when compared to large scale superhero blockbuster that often succeed 150 to 200 million dollars. Instead of investing heavily in visual effects spectacle, the film allocate its resources strategically toward performance-driven storytelling in international location and tightly choreographed action sequence. A significant portion of the budget was naturally dedicated to above-the-line costs, particularly the lead actor salary. Established star in long-running franchise command substantial compensation, and securing to recognizable lead ensure marketability and global distribution strength. The actor fees and the producer commitment also fall into this category. These elements can account for a notable percentage of the total cost before physical production even being. Location shooting in Italy contributed meaningfully to the budget structure. Filming in authentic European town provide visual richness and atmospheric realism, but it is also involved travel permits, local crews, and logistical coordination. International production often increase short-term expenses, however, it enhances production value for enhancing reducing reliance on artificial sets or green screen environment. In this case, the investment in practical locations strengthen the film grounded tone and intimate aesthetic aligned with its character driven focus. Action choreography represent another critical allocation of resources. Unlike CGI heavy action film, this production emphasizes practical stunt precision, editing and control set pieces. Cost includes stunt coordination, rehearsal time and safety protocol and specialized camera setup. Although the action sequences are intense, they are relatively contained compared to globe spanning destruction spectacle. This containment keep the visual effect expenditures moderate. The film avoid excessive digital rendering, opting instead for realism and close quarters tension. As a result, post-production visual effect costs like remanded control compared to more effects dependent franchise. When comparing to the budget to the film which reportedly operate within a similar financial range, the third installment demonstrates consistency in financial planning. The franchise has maintained a stable production scale rather than escalating dramatically with these sequels. The consistency reflects confidence in its established audience and formula. The studio appeared to prioritize reliability over expansion, avoiding the risk of blooming budget that require extraordinary box office performance to break even. In contrast, temporary action titles such as John Wick Chapter 4 repeatedly operated within a higher budget, reflecting more elaborate set pieces, global location, and stylized action choreography. By comparison, the film remained more restrained, its financial strategy aligned with its narrative tone, focus, efficient, and deliberate. The film does not attempt to compete through skill but through character emphasis and control intensity. Marketing expenses, while separate from the core production budget, also influence overall financial risk. For a film in this budget category, emotional spending can add tens of millions of dollars globally. However, established franchise benefit from brand recognition, reducing the need for aggressive awareness campaign compared to the entirely new intellectual property. Overall resource allocation appear disciplined. Funds were directed toward performance, credibility, authentic environment, and polished action rather than a visual excess. This approach positioned the film in a sustainable commercial bracket. With a modern production budget relatively to the contemporary action standard, the financial model allow profitability without requiring record breaking revenue. Analytically, the budget reflects strategic containment rather than ambition of spectacle. It mirrors the spectacle at the story center, precise, efficient control by maintaining a steady cost range comparable to its predecessor and lower than larger action franchises. The film balances risk and reward effectively within the modern theatrical marketplace. The film performed solidly at the domestic box office, earning approximately $92 million in the United States and Canada. In the context of the today theatrical market, this figure represents a steady and respectable outcome for a mid-budget R-rated action thriller. While it did not reach blockbuster level number, it performed in line with expectation for a mature seeing franchise entry release in a competitive late summer window. Looking especially at the range, the North America market has become increasingly selective about theatrical attendance. Post-pandemic viewing habits have shifted, with audience often reserving cinema trip for event films such as superhero spectacle or major franchise finals. Within that environment, an R-rated action thriller targeting adult viewers facing a narrower but loyal demographic. The film's domestic earnings demonstrate that these remain a consistent audience for grounded, character-driven action stories, particularly those led by established stars. Opening over the Labor Day holiday weekend in the United States gave the film a strategic advantage. Historically, this period has become quieter for major studio release, allowing a well-known franchise to dominate attention. The strong debut indicates that brand familiarity play a significant role in drawing viewers. Audience who had followed the earlier installment show reinforces the franchise reliability in the domestic market. When comparing performance trend, The domestic total is slightly lower than the Equalizer 2, which earned around $102 million domestically. This modest decline aligned with broader industry pattern rather than signaling franchise fatigue. Many mid-budget action films have seen tighter theatrical window and more cautious attendance. Additionally, streaming availability and shortened exclusivity period can enhance long-term box office growth. In contrast, comparing it to larger action franchises such as John Wick Chapter 4, which achieve a significantly higher domestic total, highlights difference in scale and audience expansion. The John Wick series has gradually escalated in stylization and spectacle, attracting a wider international fan base and generating increasing momentum with each installment. The film franchise, however, maintain a more intimate and grounded tone, appealing for me primarily to adult viewers rather than younger demographics. As a result, its domestic performance reflects stability rather than explosive growth. Audience trend also show that older moviegoer may remain an important factor in domestic earning for this type of film. Unlike youth-driven franchises that rely heavily on opening weekend arches, the film benefited from steadier week-to-week hold. Mature audience often attend film over a longer period rather than concentrating viewership in the first few days. This pattern contributes to a consistent accumulation of revenue rather than dramatic spike. Another contextual factor is genre positioning. The action thriller genre without fantasy or superhero element tend to operate within a defined ceiling at the domestic box office. A $90+ million domestic result placed the film comfortably within the upper tier of non-franchise adult focus action drama. It signals that there remains sustainable demand for realistic character-centered action narrative. Overall, the domestic box office performance reflects mere success. It neither underperformed nor dramatically exceeded expectation. Instead, it reinforced the franchise dependable appeal within the North America market in a landscape increasingly dominated by massive franchise spectrum. The film demonstrated that mid-scale action film can scale through domestic strong return through brand consistency, strategic release timing, and loyal audience engagement. The film generated approximately $98 million in international market, bringing its worldwide total to around $190 million. When analyzing its international box office separately, the performance reflects steady global appeal rather than explosive expansion. The film maintained a balanced overseas appearance supported by franchise recognition and the universal accessibility of action-driven storytelling. Regionally, Europe played a particularly important role in the film's international revenue given the story Italian setting. European audience, especially in countries such as Italy, France, Germany, and United States, responded positively to the familiar culture backdrop. Filming on location in southern Italy and the most important added authenticity, which strengthened the original marketing campaign. Local promotional material often emphasized the picture's cue, coastal towns, and cultural atmosphere, positioning the film as both a thriller and a cinematic showcase of European landscape. In Italy specifically, the setting contributed to stronger engagement. While the franchise has traditionally performed best in North America, the third installment, Regional Identity, helped build interest in European markets. This demonstrates how strategic location choices on enhance international appeal. When audience recognize their own environment or cultural touchpoint on screen, it can increase emotional investment and box office turnout. In Asia and Latin America, the performance was more moderate but still consistent with genre expectation. Genre thrillers led by established Hollywood star often translate well globally because physical storytelling, suspense, choreography, and visual tension require less cultural interpretation than dialogue heavy dramas. However, without large scale spectacle or fantasy element, the film did not experience the kind of rapid growth seen by globally dominant franchise. Instead, it delivers stable return aligned with mid-budget action standard. Marketing reception internationally reflected similar trend to domestic response. Viewers familiar with the earlier installment were more likely to attend. The franchise benefit from a clear brand identity, grounded action, moral justice theme, and a control pace. This reliability can be advantageous in international market where audience gravitate toward recognizable formula. However, it also limit expansion into younger demographic but often drive higher ticket sale overseas. Marketing impact varied by region. In North America, promotion emphasized franchise continuity and the return of the lead character. International campaigns lean more heavily on atmosphere and location, particularly in Europe. Trailers highlighted the scenic Italian coast alongside intense contained action sequences. Approach balance elegance with suspense, differentiating the films from louder effect heavy competitors when compared to other action franchises such as John Wick Chapter 4, which achieve significantly higher international totals. The difference becomes clearer as John Wick's stylized action and global narrative scope have steadily expanded its overseas audience. In contrast, the film maintains a more intimate narrative scale which can resonate deeply but which may not generate the same broad international event status. Despite this, the nearly even split between domestic and international earnings indicate healthy global support. For a film produced on a moderate budget, international market contributed substantially to the overall profitability. The balance suggests that while the franchise core audience remains strongest in North America, overseas viewers consistently support each installment. Overall, the international box office performance demonstrates durability rather than break-even breakout growth. It confirms that the franchise holds recognizable value across multiple regions, particularly in Europe where the setting enhances engagement. The marketing strategy effectively leveraged atmosphere and authenticity, resulting in a solid overseas performance that complemented domestic earnings and reinforced the film's global viability. The film achieved a worldwide gross of approximately $190 million, combining roughly $92 million from domestic market and about $98 million from international territories. From a financial perspective, evaluating this figure required more than simply comparing it to the reported production budget. A proper break-even analysis must count for distribution costs, marketing expenditure, exhibitor revenue, split, and additional revenue stream beyond the theatrical release. The reported production budget has been widely estimated in the $70 to $75 million range. However, theatrical market often referred to as PA printing and advertising and significantly increased total expenditure for a mid-budget studio action film. Global distribution marketing cost may range between $40 to $60 million worldwide. This includes trailers, television spot, digital advertising, international promotional tours, and physical distribution logistics. When combined with production costs, the total investment could reasonably fall between $110 to $130 million. Break-even calculation are further influenced by revenue split between studios and theater. Domestically, studios typically retain around 50 to 55% of the box office revenue, while international split often range between 35 to 45 depending on the territory. This means that from the $190 million worldwide gross, the studio's actual theoretical return would be considerably lower, potentially in the range of $90 to $100 million after exhibitor cut. Based purely on theoretical income, the film may approach break-even but would not generate substantial profit slowly from ticket sale. However, theoretical performance represents only one component of total revenue stream. Post-theoretical income play a crucial role in profitability. These revenue streams include digital rentals and purchase, physical media sales, streaming licensing agreement, cable broadcasting right, and international television syndication. Established franchise benefit significantly from home entertainment market, while loyal audience continue engagement beyond cinema. In many cases, these secondary revenue channel push a film from marginal theoretical recovery into solid profitability. The global audience response also contribute to long-term brand value, even if theoretical profit margin are moderate. Maintaining franchise visibility, support a long catalog sale of previous installment, and strengthen negotiating leverage for streaming distribution deal. Franchise consistency build audience trust, which hold measurable financial value over time. Another important factor is distribution efficiency. The film moderate production scale, reduce financial risk compared to larger action franchise with budget exceeding $150 million. By keeping cost control, the studio lowered the break-even threshold. This disciplined budget strategy increased the likelihood of achieving profitability even without record-breaking box office performance. When compared to higher budget action films such as John Wick Chapter 2, which generates substantially larger worldwide grosses but also consider high production and marketing costs, the film represent a more conservative financial model. While it did not achieve blockbuster level global number, but it also did not require them to maintain financially viable. With a worldwide gross of approximately $190 million against an estimated total investment of $110 to $130 million, the film likely reached or slightly exceeded its break-even point once ancillary revenue streams are included. Its global audience performance demonstrates steady international support and reinforcing the sustainability of mid-budget action franchise. Financially, the film reflects strategic cost control, balanced global distribution, and diversified revenue channel rather than reliance on massive theatrical spectacle alone. The film presents an interesting case when evaluating profitability because its financial performance reflect balance rather than blockbuster dominance. To determine whether the film was profitable, we must carefully compare total revenue against the total cost while considering ancillary income stream and overall return on investment. The production budget has been widely estimated in the range of $70 to $75 million. However, the production cost alone does not represent total financial expense. Marketing and distribution expenses, often referred to as PA, printing and advertising, can significantly raise the overall investment for a globally distributed studio action film. Promotional spending may reasonably fall between $40 to $60 million. This places the likely total cost in the approximate range of $110 to $130 million. The worldwide box office gross reach around $190 million. On the surface, it appears comfortably above production cost, but gross revenue does not equal studio profit. Theater retain a substantial percentage of ticket sales. Domestically, studios typically receive about half of ticket revenue, while international returns are often lower, sometimes around 40% or less depending on the region. After exhibitors split the studio share of the $90 million worldwide gross may have landed nearly $95 million to $100 million. Based strictly on the theoretical return, the film likely approached break even rather than generating significant profit. However, theoretical revenue is only one part of the modern film financial lifestyle. Ancillary income play a decisive role in the overall profitability. Ancillary revenue include premium video on demand, rental, digital purchase, Blu-ray and DVD sales, streaming licensing agreement, airline rights, and the cable television broadcasting deal. Established franchise benefits especially from these channels because they carry built-in audience loyalty. Fans who may not attend theater immediately often purchase or rent the film later. Additionally, licensing agreement with our streaming platform can provide substantial guaranteed revenue. These post-theatrical stream often contribute tens of millions of dollars, sometimes exceeding theoretical profit margin. Another financial advantage lies in franchise continuity. As a third installment in an franchise established series, the film benefited from catalog sales of previous entries. When a new sequel released, earlier film often experience a boost in streaming and rental activity. This indirect revenue strengthens the overall franchise portfolio, improving long-term ROI beyond a single film theatrical performance. From an ROI perspective, the film represents a relatively controlled investment compared to the large-scale action production with budget exceeding $150 million. Its moderate cost structure reduces financial risk. Even if theoretical profit margin are moderate, the lower initial investment increase the likelihood of eventual profitability. Once our revenue streams are accounted for when compared to the higher budget action titles like this, John Wick Chapter 4, which generated larger worldwide losses but also require larger upfront expenditure. The film follows a more conservative financial model. Its profitability may not explosive, but it is sustainable. In conclusion, with theoretical revenue alone likely place the film near break-even, the addition of ancillary income streams strongly suggests that it's achieve overall profitability. The balanced ratio between revenue and cost combined with steady franchise demand and diversified post-theoretical earning indicate a positive ROI over time rather than massive financial drift. The film represents a strategically successful mid-budget action release with controlled risk and dependable return. The film generated generally positive audience reaction, particularly among viewers who were already invested in the franchise. While it did not create widespread culture boost on the level of major blockbuster spectacle, it resonated strongly within its target demographic. Audience response reflect loyalty, appreciation for tone consistency, and satisfaction with the film's emotional core. From a demographic perspective, the film primarily appealed to adult audience, especially viewers aged 30 and above. This group had consistently supported grounded action thrillers centered on mature protagonists, unlike youth-driven superhero franchise that draw large teenage crowd. The Equalizer series has always leaned toward older moviegoers who prefer methodical pacing, moral clarity, and character-forced storytelling. Many audience survey and cinema exist reaction indicated that the film performed particularly well among male viewers, though it also attracted female viewers who appreciate suspense-driven narrating with emotional depth. Viewers' feedback frequently highlighted the calm, controlled tone of the film. Many audience appreciated its restraint compared to the louder, more chaotic action movies. The slower pacing and intimate setting were often described as refreshing instead of relying on constant spectacle. The film allowed tension to build gradually for viewers seeking thoughtful action rather than non-stop explosion. This approach was seen as a strength. Comments commonly refer the lead performance as a major reason for engagement, praising the quiet intensity and emotional subtlety. At the same time, reactions were not universally enthusiastic. Some viewers expecting large-scale action or dramatic escalation compared to the previous installment felt the story was more contained than anticipated. For certain audience segments, particularly younger viewers accustomed to high energy editing and elaborate stunt choreography, the film deliberate pace may have felt restrained. However, even among mixed reaction, there was acknowledgement that the tone remained consistent with the franchise identity. Engagement level online reflected steady interest rather than viral momentum. Social media discussion tended to focus on specific action sequence and the film atmospheric Italian setting. The visual backdrop sparked conversation about the authenticity and the mood of the location, contributing to positive word of mouth. Fans shared appreciation for how the setting complicated the emotional tone, reinforcing the sense of quiet refuge, contrasting with underlying tension. Audience engagement was also influenced by franchise continuity. Viewers familiar with the earlier film responded positively to the sense of narrative closure. Many interpreted the third installment as a satisfying conclusion to the character's journey. This perception added emotional weight to the reaction as long-term fans felt they were witnessing the completion of a story. Closure can significantly shape audience satisfaction even if the film itself avoids dramatic twist or structural surprise. Cinema score and audience rating platform reflected solid approval. Score indicated that viewers generally left theater satisfied, while critical reviews may have varied in tone. Audience sentiment lean more favorable. This pattern is common with character-driven action franchise, where viewers' loyalty often outweigh critical scrutiny. And other key element in audience reaction were relatability. The film emphasis on community protection and justice resonated with viewers who appreciate moral simplicity in storytelling. The protagonist's clear ethical framework through operating outside moral law enforcement system appeal to audience seeking stories of decisive action against wrongdoing. This straightforward moral positioning can generate strong viewers connection, particularly among older demographic. General audience reaction were characterized by loyalty, appreciation for tone, consistency, and emotional satisfaction. The film may not have expanded its demographic reach dramatically, but it successfully met the expectation of its core audience. Engagement remains steady with positive word of mouth among mature viewers who value restrained storytelling and character focus. Rather than aiming for viral culture dominance, the film achieves something equally important: dependable audience approval within its established demographic base. The film demonstrates how box office performance can significantly shape public perception even when critical reception is mixed or moderate. Financial results often influence how audience interpret a film culture relevance. A strong or stable box office showing can reinforce the idea that a film is successful and worthwhile, while weaker numbers sometimes create a perception of decline even if viewer satisfaction remains solid. In this case, the film nearly won $90 million worldwide gross, position it a commercially stable entry rather than a breakout hit. That stability affected perception positively. It signaled that the franchise still holds reliable audience appeal. While critics often vary response, some praising it resonated in atmosphere, other noting its familiar formula. The steady box office return help frame the film as a dependable continuation rather than a diminishing sequel. Studio reputation also reflects from consistent mid-budget performance for a studio. Maintaining financially responsible franchises build credibility. When a film meet or approaches profitability without excessive risk, it reflects disciplined production strategy. This reinforces the perception that the studio understands its audience and manages genre project effectively. The film's earnings appear modest next to larger action titles such as John Wick Chapter 4, which achieve higher global total. However, those films also carry higher budget and broader stylistic ambition. Within the grounded action thriller category, the film performance aligned well with expectation. Box office performance shaped perception by emphasizing relatability over spectacle. It confirmed the franchise sustainability even without blockbuster dominance. The film stands as a restrained and mature entry in the modern action genre, prioritizing atmosphere and character over spectacle. From a cinematic quality standpoint, the film benefits greatly from its deliberate pacing and visual composition. The Italian coastal setting is not merely decorative, it shapes the film's mood. Warm sunlight, narrow street, and quiet town life create a calm surface beneath which tension steadily build. This balance between scenery and threats gives the film a distinct identity. In terms of production value, the film demonstrates disciplined craftsmanship rather than extravagance. The action sequences are tightly choreographed, controlled, and purposeful. There is a minimal reliance on overwhelming visual effect and which enhance realism. The grounded style work in its favor, though viewers expecting large scale set pieces may find the scope somewhat limited. Performance remains the film's greatest strength. The lead portrayal carry emotional weight through subtitle expression and physical restraint. The character's internal conflict between violence and peace is lived in rather than dramatized. Sporting performance, while not heavily layered, contribute authenticity to the community dynamic. The chemistry between the central character and the townspeople add emotional texture. Thematically, the film explores justice, belonging, and redemption. It asks whether someone shaped by violence can truly embrace tranquility. This interception focus elevated above formulaic action thrill. However, the film's weakness lie in predictability. The narrative structure follows familiar pattern and the antagonist forces lack deeper complexity. Despite this, its emotional sincerity and mere execution made it is a satisfying and dignifying conclusion to the trilogy. The film is best suited for viewers who appreciate grounded, character-driven action rather than spectacle-heavy blockbuster. If you are a type of audience member who value quiet tension, moral theme, and control pacing, this film will likely resonate with you. It is especially recommended for adult viewers, particularly those aged 25 and above, who enjoy mature storytelling and reflected protagonists. Fans of methodical action thriller with emotional undertones will find the film satisfying. For genre preferences, this movie appeals more strongly to viewers who enjoy realistic action dramas centered on justice and personal redemption. If you admire stories where the hero operates with calm precision and internal conflict rather than flashy bravado, the films align well with your taste. It also works for audience who appreciate atmospheric setting and subtitle emotional development over constant explosive sequence. The emotional resonance of the film lies in its theme of belonging, protection, and the search for peace. Viewers who connect with stories about second chance and moral responsibility may find the narrative meaningful. The slower pace allows for reflection, making it more contemplative rather than adrenaline driven. However, the film may not be ideal for younger audience or viewing seeking high energy large scale action with rapid editing or elaborate stunt. Those who prefer fantasy element and superhero spectacle or complex plot twist may find it restrained and predictable. However, it is a strong choice for mature action fans who appreciate emotional depth alongside disciplined storytelling.